I am doing something a little different than what I normally do on my podcast episodes. Normally, with my podcast episodes, I just black out and just start recording whatever comes through to me. And this episode is a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more raw, a little bit more real. And when I recorded this a few days ago, I couldn't stop thinking that I just didn't get a few of my points fully across from it. And I just thought, instead of redoing the whole episode, because I do think that there is value here, and I always want to be my most authentic self to you guys, so I'm not even going to go back and redo any parts of this episode, but I am going to add some things here in the beginning to give a little bit of a prerequisite. Is that even the right word? Probably not. If you're like, Alyssa, that word doesn't even make any sense here, but that's the word I'm using. I'm talking about losing both of my parents in this episode and how truly, truly, truly it shaped me in a way to be where I'm at today. And the whole time that I was recording that episode, I felt I didn't feel very good, if I'm being totally honest, because having to relive this stuff and re-talk about it and to tell the story in a way that I did, it was hard for me. So after recording it and having it ready to go for you, I really sat with how I felt, and I wanted to make sure that I added some things in here that I didn't get my point across from the first time. So later in this episode, I do talk about my mom's suicide. And I do say how I am not very into September Suicide Awareness Month, and I didn't do a good job of explaining fully why. So I wanted to give that context here now. So whenever you listen to the episode, you're hearing it with this also in mind. And the reason that I don't subscribe to Mental Health Awareness Month, specifically for me, I'm not saying that I disagree with it for everyone else, but for me, and maybe this can be something helpful for you. There's a reason why this is on my heart to share with you. So I hope that if you're listening, you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad she said this because I needed to hear it. Um, with my mom's suicide, I know for a fact, like it deep in my core, this is a belief that I have, that she had to go on the journey that she went on in this lifetime. It has nothing to do with me. And the reason that I'm saying that is because when she did pass, the amount of people that gave me their 2 cents about how selfish it was of her and how she's gonna be in hell and just really unnecessary shit that you say to someone who just lost a loved one, let alone you lose them to suicide. And it just really shaped the belief of it had it really to me, I don't think it's selfish. To me, I think that she had to do what she had to do in this lifetime in order to learn whatever it is that she needed to learn here in this lifetime. And I don't carry around either one of my parents' deaths on me like a badge of victim or look what they did to me, because I don't feel that way. And I choose not to feel that way, right? I choose to look at the circumstances that I was adjacent to, again, because yes, this happened something in my life, but my dad's life and my mom's life weren't my life. Of course, there was grief and mourning, and there still is. I still have to live with the wound of losing both of them with me every single day. It's not something that I'm over or that time heals. I truly believe that your energy and your heart just make room to operate and navigate through life with that kind of wound. And I'm telling you this because for everything that you feel has affected you or that you could easily play victim to, I want you to really ask, does it actually have anything to do with you? You know? And I don't mean this in a rude, get over it, has nothing to do with you. I mean it from an empowerment place of, does it actually mean something about you in a reason for you to play victim towards it, right? Because for me, I could easily have rolled over and let circumstances win me over, but I chose not to. I chose to fight through the bullshit and to really changed the way that I thought about things, and the way that I thought about things were because other people told me to, right? Like I grew up hearing how selfish it was and blah 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 blah, and I don't apply that to my situation. You know, and I don't apply that to my mom's situation, and I don't apply it to my dad's situation. And by me saying this, I hope that it sheds light too on the entire point that I'm trying to get across in this episode. And to be totally honest, like I don't even know if the point that I'm trying to make will come across in this episode. Maybe over the next few episodes that I record that it will, because like I said, or like you will hear, I want to share more with you all in this new year. And in order for me to share more with you all in this new year, you have to kind of hear the background stuff, right? And this is part of the background stuff. But I had to add this in here at the beginning of the episode because I'm not going to go through and redo what I've already recorded, because I know there is things in there that came through me that you need to hear. Someone needs to hear. A perspective shift needed to happen. But I did just want to add this little 2 cents into the episode before we get into it. So I hope you walk away from this episode feeling lit up, feeling empowered, feeling like you have total control over your circumstances and what life hands you. And at the end of the day, like, you are so much more powerful than you give yourself credit for. And I hope that you feel that after listening to this episode. Enjoy! Hi there, and welcome to Limitlyss with your host, Alyssa Simpson. That's me! I am a mindset and manifestation coach, but you can just call me your personal giggling goddess of manifestation. I use my woo-adjacent approach to turn women into the poster children for Lucky Girl Syndrome. And since you've tuned in today, I have a feeling you're ready to become a poster child real soon too. So now that you're here, it's time to sit back, relax, and learn how to become limitless. Something that I am very consistent with is my mindset work. And over the past 6 or 7 months, something that I have incorporated that I am really loving is doing morning subliminal messages. When I do my subliminal messages, I am also journaling or writing down my gratitude list for the day, or really just sitting and soaking it all in. And oftentimes I get asked, Alyssa, like what subliminal messages do you listen to? And I actually create my own in a way that is not your typical subliminal message. So majority of people understand subliminal messages as things that your subconscious mind can understand, but your conscious mind cannot. And I am a very firm believer in, if there is something that I'm working on, if there's a limiting belief that I'm trying to rewire, I need both my conscious mind and my subconscious mind to understand that we are rewiring that limiting belief. So I listen to subliminals that are actually blended in with affirmations, if you will, and just things that I am truly trying to get my both conscious mind and subconscious mind on board with. So my subliminal messages are a blend of subliminal music plus guided affirmations on top. And what I have learned is when I can personalize my own subliminal messages and really use them for the season that I'm in, I am able to see actual real change for myself. And something that I love to do is share with you the things that I find that actually truly work. And with that being said, I have created a beautiful subliminal affirmation guided recording for you that is complimentary. You can have it for free, but there is a little bit of a trade-off here. You can have this guided subliminal message for free if you leave a review on this podcast episode, screenshot the review that you have left and send it to me via email or via Instagram DM. However you want to get the review to me is perfectly fine. And when you submit that review to me via a screenshot, you will receive an email for the guided subliminal message. This is something that's going to be really great to kickstart the year for you. It's something that I really enjoyed creating. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of growth. There is a lot of inspiration inside of this recording, and it's yours for free. You just got to leave me a review
and send me the screenshot. Let's get back to the episode.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Limitlyss. This is our very first video recording of the podcast. So this is going to be what the vibe is for 2025 and moving forward, where you get to see me talking to you and you get to hear me talking to you. If you're just listening, tuning in via audio, there's video now, y'all. We have a YouTube channel. We are elevating things here in the Limitlyss world, and I'm so excited that you're here. I hope you had the most incredible holiday. I hope you had the most incredible start to your new year. Now, it has come to my attention, you know, those things that you think that you talk about all of the time, but really everyone kind of misses it. Like, they're like, I think I've heard Alyssa talk about that before, but I'm not really entirely sure. We're going to revisit some of my stories, if you will, moving forward into 2025. And what I mean by revisiting my stories is there are so many levels to myself and how I've gotten to this point in my life that I feel like I talk about ad nauseum, but the fact of the matter is that I haven't really, you know? So I would be doing a disservice to you if I did not bring these stories to you in a way that not only inspires you, but it just lets you know, like, you're not alone. Like, you can be going through the trenches. You can be experiencing your world burning to the fucking ground, and you can still make it out even better than you were before. And if you're currently starting this new year feeling like, oh my God, that's me right now. Like, I feel like my world is burning to the ashes. That's a good sign. Okay? It is a really good sign whenever we have moments in our life where everything is hitting the fan, where everything feels like it's burning down, because things have to happen in that way in order for us to become better and in order for us to really step into our highest self. So, the pivotal moment for me, as some of you may know and some of you may not know, maybe this is the first time you're here. If so, welcome. Maybe you're a lifetime listener. Hi, we're going to get into a story you may be familiar with again. But it is the death of my parents. You know, I lost them 6 years ago within 6 months of each other. And because of that death, this is why I'm here right now. I have a podcast. I have a coaching business. I have really emerged myself. Is it emerged or submerged? I don't really know. But I've emerged myself into the metaphysical world, the mindset world. I've taken everything that I have learned over the past 16 years, and I have decided to bring it to the masses in a way that we can all live a limitless, magnetic, abundant, prosperous life. So in order for you to kind of understand where we're at right now, we got to roll the tape back 6 years ago. Okay. Even before that, if I'm being totally honest, because the death of both of my parents. So my dad was sick for, and see, this is the funny thing about our brains. Our brains block things from us that they know are hurtful. And so it's really a giant blur, the time leading up to my dad's passing, and it was probably like 4 or 5 years. Josh and I started dating in October of 2014, and that December 2014, my dad was hit by a car walking in a parking lot to go visit his mother at her assisted living facility that she lived at. And that car that hit him, it caused him to break all of his ribs. He had brain damage. He punctured his lungs. He was in ICU on ventilators for a long period of time. Again, I do not know the exact amount of time because my brain is doing a good job of protecting me from that whole thing. And what I do remember, though, is Josh and I were helping one of our friends move out of her house and into her now husband's house. They were moving from Rendon down to San Antonio, which is probably like it's a 5-hour trip. And so Josh and I were there helping them move. And while we were there, Josh came up to me. I didn't have my phone on me. I left it in my car. And Josh came up to me, and all I remember him saying to me is, everyone's okay, but, and then I don't remember what else he said to me. And that was him telling me that my dad had been in that accident where that lady who was driving her car in the parking lot had hit him. And he was all the way up in Plano. So from where we were in Rendon to Plano, which is north of Dallas, Plano is, I don't know how long that is, but it's like over an hour, maybe close to 2 hours. And so I just remember us being in the car. I think I was losing my shit. I might have been totally calm. I don't really know. But we went to pick up my mom. And as we pull up to my parents' house, my mom, she walks outside and she has a joint that she's smoking. And she puts her joint out on her little driveway. And then she has a rum and coke in her hand. And she just throws it back. And then she gets in the car. And she's like, I just had to have something to calm my nerves. And it was just so funny to me because I'm like, of course, Mom, you have to have a little buzz on before we go see your husband in the hospital. We have no idea what's going on. And we drive to the hospital, we get there, we get out, and I am losing my mind. Like, I'm freaking the fuck out. I'm going up to the front desk and I'm like, I don't think I was yelling at them, but I was being very assertive and like raising my voice, like, let me see my dad, let me see my dad. Because all I was thinking is, if I can just have eyes on him and see him, everything's going to be fine. And they kept telling me no, they kept telling me no, they kept telling me no, because at that point he wasn't even in a room. Like, they were still trying to stabilize him. And when they finally did, they're like, all right, just let this girl see her fucking dad. Like, she's not going to stop. She's causing a scene. Let her through. They let me through these doors, and my dad's on this stretcher, and he's covered in blood. And that's all I remember. And I remember like freaking out, like, this is a severe thing. This isn't like he broke his arm. Like, he had blood. It felt like coming out of every part of his body. So we're sitting in the waiting room. We're waiting. And we finally get to go back into the room, but he goes straight to ICU. So there was like a lot of restrictions on who can be in the room and when. And that was like a whole nother thing. I remember it might have been my brother, who kind of raised a little bit of hell with them. Like, yo, we're not gonna, like, it's me, my sister, and my mom. We're all gonna be in there. Like, just deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, we've never been through anything like this, and we'll stay out of the nurse's way, but we want to be in there together. And after this happened, he was in the Plano hospital for, like I said, months. I don't remember how long. I do not remember how long. The recovery to all of this was really overwhelming. There was, physical therapy involved, speech therapy involved. When he finally came out of I guess, a coma, they put him in a coma to kind of like make sure that he wasn't totally losing his mind. He really didn't know a whole lot. Like, it was kind of weird. Like, he knew who I was, but he didn't know who I was, and same thing with my brother and my mom. And then and my parents didn't have insurance, right? And if I don't know, did they? I don't know. And if they did have insurance, whatever they had was like real shitty. So they were limited on options, and they got accepted into this like weird ghetto home. Like, this wasn't even like a home health thing. Like, it was literally someone's home where there were bars on the window. And I don't know, is it not PC to say ghetto? I don't really care. That's what it was. Like, straight up, that's what it was. There were burglar bars on the windows. There were homeless people all over the streets. And this house was like where my dad had to go to like finish his recovery. And inside that home, the people who were the caretakers there was 40-ounce beers like in their kitchen. There were like Black and Milds in these ashtrays, like they had been smoking in the house. And it's like, how the fuck is this like a home health where he's supposed to go to finish his recovery? So he's there for not very long because my mom broke his ass out after a while, because she also felt like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, they're not like, it's like adults who are fucked up watching adults who are medically fucked up. You know what I mean? It was very, very strange. But she broke him out. He came back home, and he eventually was able to like tell us about that whole experience like a year and a half later, where he was able to be like, hey, you guys remember whenever I came home after I had that accident? And we're like, yes, Dad, we remember. He told us, I didn't know who your mother was. He was like, I knew that I knew her, but like I didn't know that she was my wife. And I just thought this lady was living in my house and she would call me babe and like kiss me on my head. So I just imagine my poor dad is like, who the fuck is this lady? Like, what is she doing in my house? Um, and my dad has the best sense of humor. Like, that's where I get it from. So the whole time, the whole like recovery thing, it really is, like humor is the best medicine. Like laughter is the best medicine. So we truly did like laugh about a lot of the things that happened. But so he's on the up and up, right? He's doing good. Um, he's kind of back to his normal-ish self. Now, before this accident happened, he had gotten sober from alcohol because he got diagnosed with liver cirrhosis, to where his body was retaining so much water, they literally had to go in and like poke a hole in his stomach to drain him like a water balloon. It was the wildest thing. If you're listening to this and you're in the medical world, you're like, oh yeah, Alyssa, that's called this and it's a common thing. Medical stuff is so weird to me. I'm like, who was the first person that they're like, let's just poke a hole in them and see if we can drain them that way? Like how the hell? So silly to think about. But so that was his health stance before the accident. So he comes out of all of this stuff and he starts drinking again. And I don't necessarily know if he knew like the severity of his liver cirrhosis and why he quit drinking, because the doctors were essentially like, hey, if you end up needing a liver transplant, if you're not at least 6 months sober from alcohol, you won't even be put on the list. And I think that he was aware enough of like, oh shit, like my liver is bad enough to where they're talking about potential transplants, right? He ended up never having to have a transplant because he started drinking again. And the drinking was so much worse than it was before. It was like wake up in the morning, make a drink and drink all day kind of thing. And before it was like wait until after the sunset before I make a drink. And as he started this whole like drinking again situation, his health declined even more, because you have to think he had a brain injury. Like his brain was never going to be the same. His body was still recovering from the traumatic things that it went through in that accident. And his liver was already trying to repair itself. And you're just going to add alcohol on top of it. Essentially, because his liver was so bad. Okay, hold on. Let me back up a little bit. Between this time and him being in a nursing home and having to be put on hospice, weird fucking things happened. He had to go, for whatever reason, and again, my memory isn't going to serve me the best because my mind is protecting me from all of that traumatic shit, but he, for whatever reason, he had to go to jail. And he had to go to jail because my mom was in the hospital because she broke her shoulder because she was drunk and she fell on her shoulder and it broke, and she waited like a week to go and get it checked out. And when she went to go get it checked out, my dad was drunk with her and causing a scene in the hospital because he didn't want her to go. And they went in an ambulance and he is in the ambulance with them causing a scene, and they had to call the police on him and he got arrested and they took him to jail. And while he was in this jail cell, holy, my country came out, y'all. He started banging his head against the bars, and they're like, there's something wrong with this guy. So they sent him to a different hospital. And when he was in that hospital, they didn't know like what was wrong with him, but he obviously there was something going on. It turns out his brain was having an adverse reaction because his liver couldn't process the toxins, so they were shooting it all up to his brain. I don't know, again, medical stuff is not my forte, so this is me like half-ass explaining to you what's going on at this point. And when he was in this hospital, They did like spinal taps on him to see if he had mad cow disease. That was one thing they checked him for. And essentially, they ran all these tests and they're like, we don't know what's going on. But this is going to be the state that he's in. And at this point, he was not making a lick of sense. He was talking to people who have been dead and passed on for years, like his brother and his uncle. And he would confuse me with my mom. He didn't understand where he was. He thought that he was in Virginia, which is where him and my mom lived for a very short period of time with my brother when my brother was really little. He said that he got hit by an airplane. So he wasn't making any sense, right? He was hallucinating. He was seeing things that weren't there. He was not making any sense at all. And while he's in the hospital dealing with that, my mom's also in a hospital dealing with a broken shoulder and recovering from that. And they are miles apart from each other. So my brother and I are pretty much playing tag team at this point. You go check on this one, I'll go check on that one. And I was a manager of a restaurant at this point too, working 40-plus-hour weeks and trying to find the time in between all of this to be a caretaker for my parents in these two different capacities, right? Now, from the hospital where they couldn't tell what was wrong with my dad, he went to a nursing home. Again, a very shitty nursing home. This nursing home ended up stealing his wedding ring. They stole a TV that we brought in there for him. If my mom was not there every day with him, I do not think he would have lived as long as he did in that nursing home. I think that something would have happened to his health to make it decline even more, like bed sores, or like she really had to advocate a lot for him. So if you've never had a loved one in a nursing home situation, especially in a shitty nursing home situation, I'm so happy for you, because it is the hardest thing to be told that you have to trust these people to care for your loved ones, but then like you walk into this place and you're like, this is shit. Like, and there's nothing I can do about it because of insurance or because of the places that will accept you if you don't have insurance. It's a lot of money, but even if it is a lot of money, there's a wait list. And like, there's so many weird things that we are never taught about with that specific time of our lives, like the nursing home time, right? Like when and if that ever happens, that you don't know until you're in it, right? Like you truly don't know until you're in it. But anyways, he was in and out of a few of these nursing homes because they were shit. And my mom, again, was advocating for him to be in a better situation. Fast forward a few years, he's still in nursing homes, basically just bedridden, Oh, he also went to a mental health facility after the whole, like, does he have mad cow disease thing? And I went to visit him in one of those, and that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Because you go into these mental health facilities and there's people there who, have schizophrenia or who are very mentally disabled or who have tried to commit suicide or tried to harm others. And if you've ever seen the movie Girl Interrupted, it truly is like that. Like it's very like you're in a jail, the people that are there, but they're all like a little loopy and a little nuts. And I mean that with like the most respect. I'm not trying to like make fun of people that are there at all. But it was really hard for me to see because again, I've never been in this situation and I'm 23 years old at this point. And I'm going to this building, I'm walking in and they have very specific visiting hours. And I had to go while I was working. I was able to get away for an hour to go and see him. And having to go back to my shift after that was so fucked up. Like, honestly, my boss should have been like, just go home, because I was not okay by any means. But I go into this building and they take my phone, they take my keys, they check me like to make sure I don't have anything on me that I could give to my dad or any other patients that are there. And then you go into this room and they wheel these people in who are like not even fully coherent. And they're there in this visiting room and you're with all these other people. And I just broke down. Like, even thinking about it now makes me so upset because it was so hard to see him in that way. And just to see other people in there as well. Like, and there's nothing you can do. Like, you're just supposed to sit there and pretend like you're like, everything's fine and it's so good to see you. But the whole energy of that place and the vibe of that place was so fucked up. And I, again, don't wish this on my worst enemy. And I'm in there waiting for him before they wheel him in, and I'm bawling, like I'm a melted mess, because I'm like, I feel so scared. I feel so nervous. I'm worried, like, what is this? What is happening? And one of the guards that was there, he was so sweet, bless his heart. He came over to me, this big, huge guy, and he just puts his arm on me and he's like, it's gonna be all right, baby. That made me cry even more, because I was like, this guy is being so nice to me and he doesn't have to be. And like, oh my gosh, it was just, that was the hardest part of all of it for me, like looking back. Just being in that situation really, really was so hard. And when my dad was in and out of these nursing homes, again, his health is declining. He's just not doing well. I'm still being held very responsibly to my job. They're not really giving me a whole lot of leeway. Their whole philosophy was kind of like, well, you're here to take care of this until someone dies, essentially. So I had to use basically any time that I wasn't working to go and spend time with him and to see him, or like after my shifts, I would go and, stay up there for a little bit with him. And just knowing like he's not going to get any better and this is the end of his road was also really hard to come to terms with personally, because I wasn't married at this point. Like Josh and I had been together for a few years, and honestly, what a fucking stand-up dude Josh is, to be like, we're dating for a few months and then my dad gets struck by this car and all hell breaks loose for my family for the next 4 or 5 years of us being together. And he stood by my side and he was the best support system I could have asked for. And things truly do happen the way that they're supposed to, because having him with me really allowed me to be the version of myself that I am today, because Josh is so supportive and he is so like understanding of my need to kind of like be independent and have my own thing and to do things in my own way and to beat to my own drum, that he wasn't trying to control the situation in any means. It was kind of like, you tell me what you're going to do and what you need me to do and I'll be there. And that's how it was for everything, And in the times where I felt like I had no idea what I needed, he stepped up to the plate and took care of the things that I didn't necessarily know that I needed to have handled for me. So it also, like, I'm telling you this because picking someone to spend your life with and having someone by your side that you go through really serious traumatic shit with does mold you into the person that you're going to be in the future. Like, it really does have an effect on you and who you're going to be and what kind of outcome happens for you in the future, because I have no idea. I'm honestly kind of scared to think about the version of myself that I would be if I had to do all of that by myself without Josh's love and support through it all. So I love you, babe. Thank you if you're listening. Also, when this whole nursing home thing was happening, I felt so guilty about my fucking job, dude. I didn't feel guilty that I wasn't spending enough time with my dad. I didn't feel guilty that I wasn't spending enough time with my mom or being there enough for her while she's going through all of this. I felt guilty about my job, about people who would replace me if I dropped dead in a second. And looking back on that, it breaks my heart, but it makes sense because that's how society teaches us to be. Society teaches us to be loyal, to make sure that we're people pleasing, to make sure that we are doing good by others and all these other things, when the reality is, like I tell y'all all the time, you got to take care of you first, because at the end of the day, no one else is going to be there to pick you up, to move you forward, or to even hold your hand through a lot of it, right? Like, people are so much more focused on themselves than they are about you, and that's okay. They should be. But that also needs to be your permission slip to be so focused on you and take care of yourself before you even think of other people. And because I was so guilty feeling about my job, I didn't really see how much all of this was really affecting me, right? Until he passed. And when he passed, I was given 10 days of bereavement, which in my opinion, that's a slap in the face too. Like, you lose a loved one and you should be given all the time in the fucking world to mourn and to grieve and to do all these things. But again, I felt guilty even making that phone call of, hey, my dad's gone. And he was on hospice up until he passed. So I was off the day that they said, like, hey, he's going to be on hospice. I called and I was like, I have to be with my family. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm going to be with my family. And I was with them. We got that call on a Thursday, and I think he passed on a Sunday, if I'm recalling it correctly. But yeah, I just texted them whenever I got the call that he had passed, and I said, hey, he's passed. I'll let you know when the funeral is, and I'll let you know whenever I'll be back to work. And they figured it out on my end, which, duh, they fucking should. But anyways, after my dad had passed, my mom struggled really hard with everything. Like, she did not cope well. She was also heavily drinking, and to the point where she got put in a hospital as well because she basically pickled her brain for a little bit. We put her in a nursing home, and for some weird, the universe worked in the most weird way, but she snapped out of it, like, fully. Like, one day it was like, get me out of this hotel room. Why are there cats all over my bed when there weren't? And the next day it was, hey, do you guys know, like, why I'm in a nursing home? And how long have I been in this nursing home? And I know that I'm in Arlington. Like, she knew. One day she knew what was happening. The day before that, she had no fucking idea. And I just know that that was the universe being like, hey, it's getting a little rough here for her. I'm gonna give her one more chance so that you guys don't have to go through this whole process all over again. Meaning you guys as in, like, you know, my brother and my sister-in-law and Josh and my grandmother and all these people. So she came out of it, and my brother and I took turns having her stay with us. So she had a room at my house and she had a room at my brother's house, and we would kind of just like be like her divorced parents. One week she'd come and stay with Josh and I. The next week she would go stay with my brother and my sister-in-law. And it was just kind of that. Oh, and then she would also go to my grandmother's house, her mom's house. So it was like this poor thing was just getting shipped around to her family because none of us trusted her to be by herself, because she proved like she can't take care of herself and she needed essentially supervision, if we're just going to call a spade, you know? And she eventually was so adamant about, like, she wanted to go home. She wanted to be back in her house. She wanted to be home with her cats in the place that her and my dad built together. And we were like, all right, okay, like, you're not a prisoner. Like, you know, we don't want it to ruin any of our relationships with you. Like, you do what you have to do, but just know this is not something that we think is best. And I knew the day that my dad passed, I was like, she's either going to commit suicide or she is going to drink herself into her death. Like, there is no other way. I just couldn't see her recovering from this. And she didn't have the emotional or spiritual intelligence to want to do that either, you know? And I had to come to terms with that before she even passed. And 6 months later, after my dad passed, she committed suicide. And even though, like, I knew that was a possibility, it was still a hard pill for me to swallow. But in the same breath, I felt relief when I got the call, because I knew that she was no longer in a position to where she was struggling and hurting and feeling like there's absolutely no answer for her. And I would go to doctor's appointments with her, and she would be in tears the entire time, telling her doctor how unhappy she was and how depressed she was and how she just didn't have an ounce of hope in her to carry on. And it was really hard to watch, but at the same time, I had to let her be that way because this was her journey, right? And I see all the time, being someone who lost a parent to suicide, and I'm not speaking for the entire community of people who have lost a loved one to suicide, but I am going to speak for me on my behalf, and maybe this can be something that is hopeful for you. That is my intention. But I never saw her suicide as we could have prevented this if we would have given her better resources. We could have prevented her killing herself by caring more about her mental health. I never saw it that way. And so whenever I do see, what is it, September is like National Suicide Awareness Month or whatever, I don't ever feel the need to like tell others like, I'm here for you if you need me. Like, you matter, you should be here, because I have such a different view on suicide because of what I've gone through. And I'm trying to say this in a very gentle way. I know that I can be very blunt and honest, and I want to say this in a way that, number one, it gets heard, and not a way for someone to say like, oh my God, like that was offensive, because again, no offenses to this at all. But I feel like I'm allowed to speak on this because I've been through it, but I don't think it matters how people pass. Like, I really don't. How oftentimes do we see things about any other way that people pass and advocating for that? And like, I know mental health is so important, and like, I'm in the mental health space, of course I am, but everyone's journey is their journey, and they have to go on it like how they're meant to go on. And I truly believe to my core that we all sign a contract before we come to earth in our human bodies that say, hey, I agree to the terms and conditions of what I'm going to experience. And I've even handpicked some of the things that I'm going to experience. And that's what's going to happen to me on earth. And then we get all of that wiped clean from our memory. And then we are birthed and we live our human experience, right? And I think to my core that my mom committing suicide was something that she had to go through, but also something that I had to be part of, like I had to experience losing her in that way. And it doesn't take away from her. And that's the other thing too that I've noticed with suicide specifically is they get that label put on them after they're gone. Like, it's talked about more than their legacy on earth, or like what they did on earth. It's they committed suicide and they're gone. It's like, okay, what did they do for fun? What were their hobbies? Did they light up a room when they walked in it? Like, what was the best memory you have of them? Why is it always about that they took their own life? There's people who essentially eat like shit, take care of their bodies like shit, and they get these diseases and they die from these diseases, but we're not advocating for those people to do better. But when they take matters into their own hands and commit suicide, it's like this, oh my God, we should have done more for them. I wish, and I don't subscribe to that belief. I don't. And maybe that's my way of coping, and maybe that's my way of dealing with it, and maybe that's my way of making peace with it, because I'm not angry at her. I don't hold any kind of resentment towards her. I honestly thank both her and my dad often, because if they hadn't have had the journeys that they had until the end, I wouldn't be here. I would probably still be stuck in an endless fucking cycle of working for someone else and just living like I'm plugged into the system that doesn't support me, when reality is after they passed. And I'm getting to the good point now, guys. Holy shit, how many minutes has it been? Like 30 minutes now. Thank you for listening, by the way. I think this is an important message for you to hear. But also, the reason of this story is to show you like all of that traumatic stuff, all of the heartbreak, all of the things that I could have easily said, I'm choosing to let this claim me and to wear this like a badge of honor, and to say like, I am the way I am because I've been through shit. Fuck that, dude. Fuck that. Because of what happened, I was able to completely transform my life in the most beautiful fucking way. Was it hard? 100%. 100%. The 2 or 3 years, I'm going to say 2 years, the 2 years after they passed was hard, dude, it was hard. And if you've been here for the very beginning, or if you are a friend of mine, you have probably seen the transformation firsthand of how out of touch I was for a while, how self-destructive I was being, as far as like just drinking all the time and, you know, not giving a fuck about anything. Like, and not to the sense where like I was running amok and like going fucking crazy and acting like a hoodlum. I just really, I didn't really care, but I did care. You know, I was just trying really hard to figure out how to grieve in a way that made sense for me, while also having this fire lit under my ass that said, I have got to do something different with my life because life is so fragile and I don't know when my last day here on earth is going to be. But if my last day here on earth is me working at this corporate restaurant job, managing teenagers that like putting so much stress and time into people that could give a fuck about me, like, oh my God, I just thought like if I'm on my deathbed and this is how I go out, and this is how people remember me, is being a manager of this restaurant and working with these people and listening to people complain about the temperature of their food. Like, oh my God, that was more depressing to me than anything else. But leaving was really hard. Like making the decision to say like I'm quitting this job that has been with me since I was 18, dude. I started with that company when I was 18. I got promoted to a manager at 21. I helped open up a new restaurant at 23. Like I had a lot of feathers in my cap with that company, but it doesn't define me, and it didn't define me, but I let it define me. I was like, oh my God, like how can I just throw all this away? So if you've ever been in that boat, trust me when I say I get it. I know how hard it is, but my desire to live for a living was so much more than just sitting like a sitting duck at this place, you know? I had to get the fuck out of there. And I did. And I did. And again, it was hard. I was riddled with anxiety my last month there because I just felt like, am I making the right decision? Like, what if I become homeless? Like, what if everything that I desire to have doesn't actually come to fruition? And like, what if I'm making the biggest mistake of my life? And I just really had to, and the good thing about me is I'm one stubborn bitch. Like I like to prove people wrong. And a lot of people who were in the restaurant world with me were saying things like, Alyssa's making a big mistake. She is letting her emotions run her life, and that's not going to pan out well for her, and she's not thinking of her future. And if you're one of those people and you're listening to this, fuck you. I hope you choke on my shit listening and seeing how great I'm fucking doing these days. But anyways, oh God, here we go. But anyways, I had such a bullheadedness to me that was like, you know what? What if? Like, what if? What if it all goes away? What if I become homeless? What if I don't know how to support myself ever outside of this? Like all I knew was restaurants, right? What if everything in my life continued to keep burning to the ground? It's like, I've already lost my parents, you know, like, fuck it. Like, I've already been through enough of this trauma. Fuck it. Like, I don't even care. And I had to let the stubborn bullheadedness of myself of, no, dude, we got to prove everyone wrong. Like, we have to show people that you can make a very radical and dramatic change and be rewarded for it. And I was, dude. When I quit, I had $50,000 of unexpected money come into my life. And that money literally was able to support me until I figured out that this is what I wanted to be doing. And that money came to me, again, very unexpectedly. And I know that that was the universe being like, hey, thank you for listening to those desires on your heart to quit this job and to go after your vision of living for a living. Good for you. Here's your reward. Like, I got you. You're going to be taken care of. Take your time, find exactly what it is that you're meant to be doing, and you will be rewarded again. And I've been an entrepreneur now for 5 years, and it's been pretty fucking great. I have been provided for in so many different ways, and I just can't help but think, like, what if I never took a chance on me? What if I never listened to that intuition, that intuitive pull, my highest self, little breadcrumbs from the universe telling me, like, you should probably quit this job? Because it did seem very irrational. In a logical brain, it did seem very irrational. But I let that irration not affect me. I'm trying to think of the right word. I let that potential, this being very irrational, not consume me, because I had to prove to myself, like, you can do this. I had to prove to myself that the universe truly does provide if I lean into surrendering everything. And here's the thing too, when I was having those moments of like, oh my God, like, what if all this goes away? I had to keep reminding myself that humans are resilient, okay? We are able to overcome anything because we have so much power within us, and our minds are what control the show. And if you just allow yourself an inch to lean into the trust that is necessary and needed for when you are trying to bring something to fruition, just trust that it's going to happen. You don't need to figure out the how or the when, right? It's just leaning into, I know in my heart this feeling that I have is me being meant for more, and I can't risk not going after that. And what I'm going to remind you of right now is all of the things that are in our world, the rules, societal structures, opinions, beliefs, religions, even, like education systems, these are all man made. These were things that were built by other people, okay? They do not hold more weight than your innate power to live in your power, you know? A society would not be profitable if we were all totally independent, wild, and free. So, in order for society to be profitable, we have to have these systems in place that kind of keep us in our lane and keep us working as a well oiled cog in the machine. Okay? Me, I'm not meant to be in that machine. And I've known that since I was a child. I just let society beat that idea into my head to the point where I went and got a normal job. I went and did the normal thing and played by the rules. But the reality is, I have seen so much more success in my life by breaking up with all of the societal rules and all of the societal things that have been taught and told and tried to be hammered into my brain. Because I am not more special than you. I am not more special than anyone else on this earth. I am not more lucky or deserving or smarter or more tapped in than anyone else. We all have this power within us to choose between playing victim by our circumstances, or the other side of that coin is we flip the script and we say, fuck that. I'm meant to live for a living. And if you follow the universal laws, if you follow your intuition, if you truly learn to break free from all of the shit that we've been taught and told, you will be rewarded. But you have to truly unlearn all of the shit that you've learned over your life. And that's exactly what I did on my journey from experiencing two really traumatic deaths to where I am now, right? And what I want you to know and understand is you don't have to have something really traumatic happen to you for you to decide that you deserve better, that you deserve more, that you deserve to live like everyone else that you see who's living large and free and flowy and with ease. Another piece to this story, which we'll talk about next week, is I have manifested more success outside of my business. And that has been something that I've been having to deal with because I've told y'all, I'll sit here and shake my fucking fist at the universe and be like, thank you for all of these blessings and abundance, but like, I need it to come through my business. And my mind is telling me, Alyssa, you need it to come through your business because society has beat it into my brain that if you're an entrepreneur, you should have success as an entrepreneur. But I have blessings and abundance coming to me outside of my business all the time. And I'm trying to learn, instead of shaking my fist at the universe, to just lean into it more and to listen to my intuition more and to really just live in the delusion of this is exactly how life is for me. And because I'm able to do it, that's how I teach you to do it. And all of the women that I work with, every single one has had unexpected money, unexpected opportunities, and unexpected blessings come to them because they choose to lean into trust and surrender and work on overcoming the shit that is programmed in their brain and replacing it with more aligned programming. And that's what I do best, y'all. Okay? And if I could go back and tell my younger self anything, it's always listen to your intuition, because your intuition is never wrong. And if I could go back and give any type of love and compassion to me during all of that, and give love and compassion back to my parents during all of that 6 years ago, I would tell all three of us, that version of me, my mom and my dad, that we will be together again, that all of this is meant to happen for a reason, and that we are each learning something from one another in this moment that's going to make us even better in our next lifetime when we get to hang out again together. And if you are feeling going into this new year that you are ready to actually listen to your intuition and actually start living for a living, you're done playing small, you're done obeying by everyone else's and every other guru's fucking rules and laws. Let's get back to home here, which is you. Let's get back to the thing that drives you the most, which is your intuition and your desires and your heart and your highest self. And let's really allow you to start living for a living. Because life is too fucking short for you to be worried about what everyone else is doing, for you to be comparing yourself to anyone else's journey, and for you to be seeking approval from anyone else but your own motherfucking self. Okay? I love you. Happy 2025. If you are not yet in the Magnetic Movement membership, politely, what the fuck are you doing? Get inside, because this is where magic happens. This is where women are transformed from little old gals playing by the rules to rebellious fucking badass queens. Okay? I'll see you guys next week. Bye! Thank you for tuning in today. Your support is so appreciated, and I would love to hear your feedback on this episode. Make sure to leave a review, and when you screenshot this and share it with your friends, that you're tagging me on Instagram at _Alyssa Simpson X. I'll see you next week. Bye!